Hello and welcome to Undefined Boiler Upload YouTube video nonsense. We're going to be previewing Big Ten, the Big Ten tournament today. I'm Casey Bartley, and since we are having an overview, who better to talk to than Mr. Joe Jackson, Feed the Post himself, also part of Boiler in the Stands. Joe, how are you doing today?
Doing good. We're recording this, first day that college basketball is back. It feels good that there's meaningful games. We don't have to argue about whether exhibitions matter or not anymore. It's just real basketball. College basketball is back, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited because there is not a name in college basketball who is more locked into the Big Ten than Joe Jackson, who we are going to be leaning heavily today on his giant Big Ten basketball preview. We will have a link to that you can get for, I believe, $10, Joe.
Yes. Yep.
For your sanity, I won't do the because that's probably what, about a third of a penny per word. This thing is gigantic.
Yeah. It's the most in-depth Big Ten preview you will find in the world. I'm very confident in that. It is breakdowns of all 18 teams, 272 Big Ten players. I forget exactly. It's like 370 pages,
387.
387 pages. So, yeah, if you are curious about really any Big Ten team, the entire Big Ten, or even just like Purdue and Indiana and maybe some of the top schools, I think it is a very, very good resource just to get familiar with. I think there was what 150 something newcomers this off season to the Big Ten. So appreciate you shouting it out. But yeah, in my head, it's one of the best resources out there just to become more familiar with what's going on in Big Ten basketball, at least to start the year.
Yeah, 100%. I do this for a living, and there is no way without this I would have an idea of what's going on with all 19, 25, however many teams are in the Big Ten now. So, yeah, we are going to be leaning heavily on Joe's entire knowledge of the Big Ten. There's not a better basketball mind out there. Check all the stuff at Feed the Post. Obviously, Boiler in the Stands. If you're watching this, you're already familiar with what they do. Previews after the games. But here we're going to lock into, as Joe kind of mentioned, a Big Ten that is entirely new in most places. There are a lot of new faces, and to help us out, we're going to start with the team that maybe is as impacted by that as anyone else. Your first preview, which is the Illinois Fighting Illini. I'm just going to give a little to give a sense of what Joe breaks down here. I mean, there are pages and pages, but a nice little overview to kind of set up what Illinois is this season. Quoting directly from this preview. After losing in the second round of the tournament last season, Illinois returned 7 players from last year's roster, with 4 of them having been part of the Illinois rotation. Illinois lost their freshman superstar duo to the draft, but they filled out their roster with a mix of transfers, incoming freshmen, and overseas talent. They have 7 newcomers total, with 3 being freshmen, 2 being transfers, and 2 players coming from overseas. From last year's roster, Illinois returns the following. And you break down the percentage of minutes, percentage of starts returning, points, rebounds, assists, everything. Like anything you could possibly want to know about Illinois, or all these teams are in here. Um, but that's something you guys can get $10 for right now. We got Joe with us, so we'll talk. Now, this is kind of what Illinois is now at this point, right, Joe? It is high lottery talent that comes in and out the door, a lot of overseas guys, and then a Brad Underwood team that has been talented but underwhelming. Is that fair to say over the last few seasons
Um, I
in
think,
tournament play?
yeah, I mean, because they had, aside from the one Elite Eight run, yeah,
Right.
they have not made a second weekend under Brad Underwood except for that Elite Eight run, and obviously they ran into the UConn buzzsaw that a lot of teams did. But yeah, this is kind of who they are, where they're gonna just kind of rotate talent in. Brad Underwood has been a coach who has been, I feel like, kind of at the forefronts of the transfer overload. And modifying kind of how he plays to adapt to his team. He has his core principles, but he's been really good, I think, at identifying, okay, this is the talent I have, so this is how I kind of need to optimize how we're going to play. This is going to be a really talented team. I mean, they're number 6 in Ken Palm. That's high for me, but they're also a team that, right, if their ceiling is they're they're out of the top tier teams to me in the Big Ten. They're probably the widest range of outcomes where if they are ending up at top five team in the country, like I think that's their ceiling wouldn't shock me. But also if things go south port quickly, they could be a team that drops a little bit. They're still going to be a tournament team and all that, but lots of talent. Definitely going to have to figure out some of the fits. And I think the biggest concern is probably the depth's very unproven
Mhm.
outside of their top probably five or six. And even then is you're banking on some overseas talents being good, but it should be another really good team for Underwood in Illinois.
Yeah. Kellen Boswell is one of the names that sticks out as a returner, originally from Arizona. Obviously moved there last season. He'll get his senior year. He's an interesting name to me because at Arizona, very impressed. Got to play off the ball, kind of got to play to his strengths. At times last season, I thought his decision making was very questionable. Is Illinois going to have to lean on him being a primary playmaker even more this season? Or what are the new names that we're going to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think Boswell will still be featured for sure. I do agree with your assessment. Like, I thought some of the decision making just wasn't there, especially compared to what he did at Arizona. He did emerge as one of the best perimeter defenders, and he'll be that once again, most likely for Illinois and the Big Ten this season. Um, so there's going to be some mix of him, especially as he's a senior. You can just kind of rely on that. But there are definitely some other names. Mihailo Petrovic, he's 20, I think 22-year old, quote unquote, freshman coming from overseas. He's played in the ABA, which is one of the better leagues, really in the entire world, and he was an MVP candidate in that league this past season. He is somebody that projects to be more of the true point guard, kind of high pick and roll, assist, get everybody else involved. Keaton Wagler is the other name that's really popped this offseason. I'm a little bit more skeptical on whether he can actually have lead ball handling responsibilities from day one. He'll be somebody to keep an eye on though. But then, right, Illinois is going to do their thing where they involve who they need to involve. And Andrei Stojakovic is a transfer from California. He's not a facilitator, but he is a high
Mhm.
level scorer, somebody that fits of getting downhill. But I think they're going to lean a lot on Tomislav Ivisic too. With his passing capabilities and just his skill and feel at what is he, 7'2", 7'1".
Right.
He's somebody that they can throw the ball to at the top of the key at the elbow and just kind of operate off of him from there. So I kind of expect it to be more of a mix than maybe last season where it was more just pure Yakachonis and then you get some mix of some other guys. This year feels a lot more just like you get a mix of a larger group.
Yeah, last year Illinois started off great. Looked like one of the best teams in the country. And then it really just seemed like their offense kind of devolved as the season went around. It'll be curious to see if having a focal point in the big man, maybe a little less just purely ISO and pick and roll could help them a little. Defensively, they look like a team with a lot of bodies. Are they going to be one of the more aggressive teams on that end of the floor? What do you see from them?
So their style has lately been very conservative, like really
Hmm.
deep drop, force tons of mid-range shots, and don't have any help. But I know Underwood has kind of mentioned at least mixing in being a bit more aggressive. I mean, they were 360th last season in defensive turnover percentage, and I think the year before also 360th. So that's kind of been the style with the Visic twins, Zvonimir coming over from Arkansas to join Tomislav. Like they're going to have an elite rim protector on the floor at pretty much all times. And so I would expect the defense to be good. I do think it'll still lean a little bit more traditional drop, force mid range, keep the ball in front. But like you have Boswell, he's somebody that can really get into guys, apply pressure. They have a, I don't know if the rest of their perimeter guys are like great individual defenders, but
Hmm.
it's a lot of length and that can obviously just force some turnovers naturally.
All right, we're gonna have to move through these teams pretty quickly. So, just a final little assessment: is Illinois a top tier Big Ten team?
Um, I w- I would say so. I think
Okay,
there's like a 1A, 1B. They're probably in that 1B to me.
okay. I think I agree with that. it's it's ideally it will probably be the opposite of last year. They get better towards the end of the season,
Mhm.
as they kind of gel and figure things out. We will see. A lot of talent. Illinois in the books. That moves us on to another team that is completely rebuilt. That is
Darren,
Darren, just straight Darren.
I believe so.
Okay. Darren DeVries at Indiana, taking over Purdue's rival Indiana Hoosiers with a roster that looks nothing like last year's, pretty much. Just what do you think of their offseason and what he's done to start off?
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be concerns about the depth and the big men. I think, obviously, I know people listening to this are basically all going to be Purdue
Mhm.
fans. But if you still just like Big Ten basketball and they're watch Indiana, they're just going to be more enjoyable than the last 4 years. Like, regardless of success, they may end up with a similar record. There's going to be more fun. There's a lot of spacing. There's a ton of shooting, more playmakers. Like, this is a team that very much is oriented to skill rather than like just athleticism and size. Um, so this team's going to jack up threes. They got really depending on who they start. They're going to have 3 to 4 really good shooters in the lineup. Their point guard is in Tatum Conaway. He isn't a great shooter, but very dynamic of getting downhill. And then you get Tucker DeVries, son of Darren DeVries. Uh, Before he got hurt last season in West Virginia, he was on an absolute heater,
Mhm.
and he is somebody that can be a Big Ten caliber, all Big Ten caliber player, elite shooter. I would expect him to get even more of kind of focal point of the offense and get back to some of the self creation he did at Drake. But I think I think the outcomes can be pretty wide for this team. To me, they project to be somewhere kind of in the middle of the Big Ten. But like I said, they're just they're going to be so much more fun to watch than the Mike Woodson era.
Yeah, let's focus on NBA basketball.
Yes.
Um, to me, they feel like a team that's going to struggle to be in the tournament. Uh, Maybe a little bit just because the Big Ten's going to beat them down this year. I don't think they're a particularly large team or a physical team, but they're also a team that's going to upset some people. Um, 3-point variance. Do you see them? Because even at West Virginia, they didn't shoot a ton of threes. A lot of their points came from threes, but it was really one or two guys that really got it off. Do you think it's going to be everyone green light, kind of just maybe even at a necessity this year, just to get the offense working?
I think it will be, and even exhibitions are what they are. But some of the shots they were taking, it was very much like, oh, these, especially like Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, they are going to be able to shoot from anywhere and everywhere. Um, right, this team lacks size. This team is going to have major concerns defensively, and I think part of how they're going to try to combat it is simply just, like you said, win the 3-point variance, make teams have to guard them out on the perimeter for 40 minutes and just kind of figure it out that way.
Yeah, I am curious. What do you think Trent Sisley can do this year? Obviously, Indiana guy, someone that Purdue was very high on, wanted. He's someone I got to watch quite a bit over the last few years in Indiana high school. He's a do everything forward wing, pretty athletic, good body, a lot of skill. What do you think is reasonable expectations for him his freshman year?
I think reasonable expectations would be that he's like the sixth man type guy, for one of the first off the bench and being able to contribute in that way. I think he fits in pretty well of like, stretch wing forward, has some capabilities to get to the rim and finish at the rim. And I think he's going to fit in well because he's not somebody that needs the ball in his hands a ton to be very impactful. I feel
Mhm.
like he's somebody that does a lot of the little things correctly, screening, rebounding, kind of those types of things. And when you have a roster of, Connor Wade and Wilkerson, DeVries, Bailey, those top four, they're all coming from, except for DeVries coming from West Virginia. The other three are coming from mid majors where they were the guy. So you look at the ball maybe not being able to be spread around a ton at times. Sicily still to me like is a guy that should be able to contribute. I do think by the end of the season he will be involved in Indiana's best lineup. And it probably means they go smaller and just
Right.
really rely on skill, but I do think that's kind of where he ends up.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that it's kind of hard to translate because in high school he's always had a physical edge. It was either quicker than a big guy or he was bigger than any littler guy you're going to throw on him in high school. And he was super smart and skilled, so he could take advantage of both. How that translates when you get into D1, when you start playing guys who are just as athletic, just as big, it takes some time, but very skilled guy. A cheat code going forward after this season. Because if you have a Ford that skilled, um I don't want to say Robbie Hummel because he feels more like Hall of Fame Vincent Edwards if you're looking playmaking wise, because he's good with the ball in his hands, he's good inside,
Mhm.
outside, maybe not quite the knockdown shooter yet, but like
Yeah,
all that's in there
yeah.
and off the dribble stuff. Some of the shots he made um just in high school as a big dude was insane footwork and stuff. He's going to be really fun. All right, Indiana, are they a NCAA tournament team next year?
I'm gonna go yes.
Ooh.
I think they're on the right side of the bubble. I do think like part of it too is I think the Big Ten in general is going to be very good outside of
Mhm.
two clear teams at the bottom. Um, Also last year the Big Ten only got 8 teams and got literally zero bubble teams in. I would expect that to somewhat flip, and that means Indiana. I think Indiana ends up on the right side of the bubble. They're not like a guarantee tourney team to me, but I think they're talented enough to squeak
Mhm.
in.
Okay. Moving on to yet another new coach, Iowa. Ben McCollum. Ben McCollum comes over. Talk about a difference in style. Are you excited to lose Fan McCaffrey in the Big Ten? Because I'm devastated.
Um, I mean, I'm very excited to watch Ben McCollum, but Fran will be missed. The 95 to 89 games where Fran also gets ejected with like 4 minutes left. It definitely will be missed.
Does Ben McCollum have enough this year to make Iowa a challenger?
Um, I don't know about challenger for the Big Ten. I do think they're kind of in the Indiana boat where they're
Okay.
very much a team that can make the tournament. When you have Bennett Sturts, who, right, is I mean, you can make the argument he's the best point guard in the country. Obviously, I think most people would take Braden Smith, especially
Joe,
listening to
why
this.
are you doing this? It's too early for this.
But no, I would still take Braden Smith. But I'm saying you can at least like
Yeah.
sort of have the argument for Sturts. Like that's the level of talent he is. If Braden wasn't if Braden wasn't in the Big Ten, Sturts would have maybe be the best player.
Right.
Um, and when you have that level, the connection between him and McCollum, he brings over a lot of his guys. Like I think there's I think there's going to be a higher floor for this team. I think the ceiling's probably a bit capped. Just they're not super athletic and they're not super big, but very skilled. And he's got like McCollum's system has just worked at every single level. And
Mhm.
obviously, this is another big jump up from Drake to the Big Ten. But at some point, a coach is just pretty good at what he does, and you kind of just trust what he's able to do.
Was this your favorite hire in the Big Ten this year?
Ye- Yeah, I would say so. I thought it was a pretty good class of hires for the Big Ten in general, but I would say, yeah, Ben McCollum's probably the best to me.
Are is it going to be a slog for every team to play Iowa?
McCollum said a little bit of like, we're not gonna be that slow, but like they are. It's just who he is. It is what he has done the last few years. Um, for reference to anybody, they were the slowest team in tempo last season, and I'm pulling up the exact stats now. I believe it was by a pretty good margin. Yeah, it was. So their style, right? Very slow, very methodical. Bennett starts, it's not uncommon for him to legitimately run six pick and rolls in one possession. If he doesn't get what he wants, he's just going to reset and rescreen, and everybody's kind of bought into that. So it, basically, the system will be imagine what Fran McCaffrey did last, like for his tenure at Iowa, and just think of the exact opposite, and you'll end up pretty close to what Ben McCollum does.
All right, same question as Indiana. Are they going to make the tournament?
Um, yes, I think to me they're the last bubble team of the Big Ten that's on the right side, and then there's a few more bubble teams where I have more concerns. Again, I think it's Iowa and Indiana. Like in my rankings, they're essentially tied,
Okay,
and I think they're both right on that like 10, 11, 12 seed area.
gotcha. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Long live Fran McCaffrey.
Yep.
Another new team, another new coach. Maryland. Kevin Willard, gone. Derek Queen, gone. In comes maybe one of the best watches for coaches in the country. Buzz Williams feels like he should have been in the Big Ten 2 decades ago. What what can Buzz do with a Maryland fan base team program that is so mercurial in nature? Sometimes their fans are awesome, sometimes the arena's awesome, sometimes they're absolute bully teams, and then seemingly with the same players, it just vanished the next year. It's been a very weird up and down. Do you like the fit of Buzz at Maryland?
Yeah, I think so. He's a proven guy.
Mhm.
Has been able to take multiple teams to the NCAA tournaments. Uh, right, and it is a unique system. He's this year specifically, well, I assume will be similar to what he did at A&M, and that kind of fits the Big Ten of super big physicality. He'll probably adapt over the coming years. It seemed to be his MO at his previous high major stops. But yeah, no, I think I like the fit. Right, I like even if he's the fourth best hire of this Big Ten class, it's still a really good, like
Loaded.
really good hire for
Yeah.
being the fourth best.
One of the curious names on the roster for Maryland, Miles Rice, who has bounced around now from Washington State and Indiana. All that listed show the stats in your preview. Rice had a tenuous relationship with IU last year. Obviously, the game against Purdue, some questionable late game decision making. Kind of his MO as a player, very skilled player. Not sure I trust the process. How much of this team leans on Miles Rice?
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be like the second, third guy, somewhere in that area where he'll have lead kind of ball handler responsibilities. Um, I do kind of buy a Miles Rice bounce back. Now, I was really high on him going into last year, and I
Mhm.
was definitely wrong about that. I think some of that was just system fit, like and confidence. And if you want to be confident as a guard, go play for Buzz Williams because his thing is, hey, if you play good defense for me, I literally do not care what type of shot you shoot. Like, just play, just hoop. And so, right, maybe the efficiency won't fully be there, but with Maryland this year is going to be one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the entire country. Once again, Buzz Williams has kind of mastered the art of getting his teams to offensive rebound. Purdue fans should remember the Texas A&M game from last season where just offensive rebound after offensive rebound, so you can get away with guards taking whatever shots. And Rice can kind of fit into that where, right, maybe he's not going to be an all Big Ten player like I thought he could be, but I think he could be a very good second or third option in a system that promotes freedom and just simply going out and hooping.
Right. Yeah, and that Texas A&M team was not like large.
No.
They were big on the wings and they were athletic. They hunted rebounds.
Yep.
Um, and he's got a pretty good Farrell Payne. Pretty every time I watch him, he does like 4 or 5 things a game where you're just like, big men don't normally do stuff like that. It'll be a return to the Big Ten for him. What's a name on the roster that if Maryland has a really good season that you think is going to kind of be the linchpin for that?
I would go with Isaiah Watts, transfer. He is also a transfer from Washington State, pairs back up with Miles Rice. He's a guy that's similar to Rice in the fact that like can be a high level scorer, maybe not an efficient scorer, a solid defender, and somebody that really can, I think, really could fit into the Buzz Williams system where I think he can be a very good defender. And then he's not going to be probably as good as Wade Taylor was for Texas A&M, but some more in that type of mold of like, hey, I'm just going to go be a bucket getter. Like I'm going to go make shots. And so I think him and the incoming freshman Darius Adams would be the two that kind of pop. Like if Maryland has a good season, I would expect it means probably both of them have played well.
Heard Maryland tournament team. We're getting
Uh,
really
I'm,
loaded on tournament teams here, Joe.
I know. So I'm gonna go no. I think they're one of the first teams that's on probably the outside of the bubble. I just don't fully trust the offense enough. And the defense should be good, but it's going to have to be at a very good level. I still think they're going to be a very competitive team. I think really this Big Ten is 15, 16 deep of quality teams.
Mhm.
They're just going to be, I think they're going to be one of the teams probably on the outside looking into the bubble.
Yeah, it's got to be someone. There's
Yep.
enough question marks there that Buzz is he'll take some time, but he's pretty much succeeded everywhere he's been.
Yep.
That means moving on to one of the most uh, the more fascinating teams for me, Michigan Wolverines. Dusty May obviously last year took over and revitalized a program from dust. What do we make of a team that is also returning four rotational players? They're bringing in nine newcomers. This is once again all in your guide. Three freshmen, four transfers, and two international players. Does Dusty May have it again to bring out another elite Wolverine program?
I think so. I think this team maybe even fits what he wants to do a bit better. Of You bring in Ellie Cadeau, and for all his concerns as a shooter, there is real concerns. He is somebody that is going to get inside of the paint at will, and be able to facilitate for others. I think May's going to like having that. And then you have Yaxel Landenborg, who is um, I who I would rate as the second best player in the Big Ten besides Braden Smith. He's a potential All-American. He is I mean, he's somebody that could be an all defense team, like 6 foot, 6'9", and really just kind of does it all. Like, I don't think he'll run as many pick and rolls as maybe Danny Wolf last season,
Mhm.
but he is that type of mold of like a big forward creator. And it's just, I really like what this defense can be. I think the offense will have some question marks with just the shooting and spacing, although I think it's less of a concern to me than maybe to some other people. But defensively, you have a front court of Lendeborg, Mara, Merez Johnson. It's going to be tough to score on the interior against this team. And Dusty May in general has been also had a defensive system that really eliminates 3-point attempts. You add those two things together,
Mhm.
some good perimeter defenders. I think this defense is going to be what carries this team.
Yeah, Ken Palm has them rated as the eighth best projected defense going into the season. Um, Obviously, if you play that well on that end, you don't have to get a ton on the other end. You're going to be in every game. And sometimes it just comes down to that. Michigan was really good clutch last year. I do tell me if you agree. My biggest concerns are kind of with their guards. Um, Roddy Gale is still going to be leveraged a lot. He's another one where some of the decision and shot making is questionable. He does a lot of good things, but there are some just mind-blowing sequences from him. Feel the same way about Nabari Burnett. And there's just some concerns to me of what their guards are going to be able to do in clutch time and into the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the weak point of their roster. They all have the upside to be
Mhm.
some range of pretty good to very good. But at the same time, they've also all kind of had flashes of like, hey, what's kind of going on here? And that's Cadeau is included in that, I would say as well. they probably need at least one of LJ Cason or Trey McKenney to really pop off the bench. McKenney's an incoming freshman. Cason returns after a solid freshman season where he wasn't maybe expected to do much, but carved out a role at the end of the bench for himself. Um, I think if you can get one of those two to pop, it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable because if Roddy Gale's having one of those games, you do have somebody else you can rely on. But the strength to me is definitely in the front court. This team is set up. I think their like metrics and stuff will be very similar to what Michigan State was last year, where the offense is a little shaky, three-point shooting is what it is, but dominate the glass, dominate the paint, dominate the free throw line, dominate on defense, play fast. The only difference is I think you look at last year's Michigan State, it was like, oh yeah, these guards are really good. The front court's
Right.
iffy, whereas Michigan's the front court's really good and the guards are have something to prove.
Do they have too many big men? Because Michigan has a lot of guys, and it'll be interesting to see how much they can play together.
Yeah, I think with Lendenborg, with his ability to defend and play offensively on the perimeter, I think you can make it work, right? One thing they bring in a Damar and Morez Johnson is their kind of backup
Hmm.
or their two other true bigs. Will Cheddar, I guess, is also in the mix, more of a four. But Mara, like, I think you're just hoping to get a pretty 20-20 split from Mara and
Okay.
Johnson. Um, I think you can make the arguments that they, right, in clutch situations, they are just not going to have their five best players on the floor. And that is a
Right.
little concerning. But at the same time, especially with Mara, the conditioning is the concern. And so if you can get a 20-20 split, I think you feel comfortable. I know May's talked about playing all three. And if it happens, like, if it's going to be fun because
Yeah.
the spacing is going to be awful, but they are
Hmm.
just going to get every single rebound imaginable. And so
Right.
we'll just kind of see what happens if they end up ever going to that.
Yeah, it'll be Dusty Mays is going to have a very tricky but fun season with that squad.
Yep.
Top tier program, Michigan, then
Yeah.
national title contenders.
Yes, I think they get
Okay.
to that level. I think because I think they're eighth on Ken Palm defense right now. I think that's low. I really like what this defense could
Okay.
be.
All right. Let's move. Stay inside of Michigan. Michigan State. Tom Izzo, despite hating college basketball and everything a part of it, is still here. Spartans are a team that was last year terrifying in both manners, I think. Um, Guards were good enough to absolutely take over any game, any portion of game, defensive hounding, but also when you're that bad of a shooting team, there are just nights where you're not going to beat anyone. What are we looking at with this squad?
I think it's a worse. Obviously, last year's team was very good.
Yeah.
It's a worse version of last year's team where defense should be the calling card. Offense is going to have concerns. And if this team really does fall, like I assume it's because they just simply cannot put the ball in the hoop. Bring back Fears, Carr, Colder, Cooper. So like you do have a solid returning core who played on last year's roster. Cohen Carr has been getting the hype as the guy this offseason, and I think he has it in him. I think there isn't a ton of margin for error if that's going to be the case, where they're going to have to be a lead on the glass once again. They're going to have to get to the line a ton. Shooting is even more of a concern, I would say, this year than last year. Like Trey Forge comes in as the guy that can shoot. Kurtang, he didn't play much as a freshman, but his tape coming into high school was as a shooter. Kohler knocked down a few, Fears knocked down a few. So like there's pathways, but it feels very much like this defense has to be good. I'm concerned about even that though too, because I do think they lost. Like I think they lost a lot more on the defense side of the ball than maybe what's realized between Trey Holloman, Jay Akins, and Jace Richardson. There's a lot of questions. I don't think this roster is as good as last year's by any
Hmm.
means. And basically, what I've been stuck in this offseason thinking of Michigan State is like, hey, I didn't fully believe them last year. Obviously, they were
Right.
incredibly good, and I was just wrong. This roster's worse, so therefore I shouldn't believe in them. But also, they got it. Tom Izzo got it done last year, so it's like, well, maybe this team's just gonna be solid once again, and that's kind of where I've ended up.
Yeah, it just seems like this roster is built to be a perfect complement to an A+ player. And
Mhm.
Jace Richardson was that at times last year. Some of those guards, just from experience, were that sometimes last year. And they don't seem to have it as guard or a big man. Like those are solid big dudes. Carson Cooper's not, you're not terrified of Carson Cooper. You're not terrified of Kohler. And it seems like teams that are really going to be dedicated and do a good job of forcing Cone Carr into places where he's not great is going to have a good job shutting down that offense. So are they even 1A or 1B to you in the Big Ten tier?
No, they're
Yeah.
they're they're tier two, tier three. I guess technically tier two if I have a 1A, 1B type thing, but
And
they're
that's
kind of more.
purely out of respect for Izzo.
Yeah, I think if I was purely just looking at the roster, like if this was just like uh, random average Big Ten team coaches roster,
Mhm.
I think this is more of like a number 11, 12, 13 type team in the Big Ten. With Izzo, like they're probably right around middle of the pack, maybe slightly above. Not going to be super fun to watch. Going to be, you know, I don't know what, an 8 seed, and I'm sure they'll somehow find their way to like the Sweet 16 because Tom Izzo just does it.
Pretty fair to say their really only path to being really good is if that defense is really good.
Yeah, agree.
All right, let's move back to Minnesota. Ben Johnson gone. Up and down tenure. I think most people liked a lot of the stuff he did. Minnesota, for whatever reason, just a black hole of keeping talent. Everyone, whether it's through NBA or transferring, everyone that was solid, picked out, who developed there, just seems to be gone every year. In comes Nico Medved. Um, is there much point in spending much time on Minnesota? I guess is my question.
I think they're a team that's going to be towards the bottom of the Big Ten. I
Mhm.
do think they're going to be a very good team that's at the bottom of the Big Ten. Like
Okay.
I have them 16th preseason. I still wouldn't be shocked if they're a top 70 Ken Palm team, top 65.
Okay.
I think there's that level of talent where, yeah, they're probably not competing for a tournament bid, but they're still going to churn out six wins or something like that, 7 wins in the Big Ten, and be feisty on any given night. The offense is going to be fun. Definitely a jump up in talent for a lot of players. So they're a team that can't be completely overlooked, but at the same time, right? I think a successful season for Minnesota and their fans would probably just be that
Right.
Medved shows life with this roster in year one.
Who's the fun player to keep your eye on this roster?
I'm a big Isaac Asima guy. He had a, like if last year's freshman class wasn't just the most stacked Big Ten freshman class in history, he would have got more buzz for what he would did. Um, Exhibitions, all that, caveats. He looked very comfortable being like the guy in
Mhm.
exhibitions. And again, take it with a grain of salt. But that's where I would go. Cade Tyson's the other one that's gotten a ton of buzz this offseason as a potential kind of bounce back after getting out of UNC.
All right. Bottom tier, not a tournament team. I think we both agree, right?
Yeah.
All right. Move over to Nebraska. I I made fun of Fred Hoiberg for a long time. A lot of that was colored by the NBA stuff, but he has made a niche here in Nebraska. It's a tough team. They play hard. Those are great fans. It's a great environment for a non-basketball school. What can we expect from Nebraska? Kind of be he was kind of the blueprint before everyone started to get transfers to build a program. And
Yeah. I
now
mean,
he's got to do it again.
yeah. Uh, this year, I think I like this roster more than most. Where you get Rank Moss back. This is a team that utilizes their 5 man so much, and he's going to be one of the best at doing that role. Like you, yeah, Fred Hoiberg. I'm impressed at what Fred Hoiberg's able to kind of have built. Like they've been top 50 Ken Palm the past 2 seasons. They're preseason 51 this year, even after losing Bryce Williams. Like I think there's pathways for them to be a tournament type team. The defense is I don't want to say gimmicky, but very much a system defense of lots and help, force lots of threes, live with the variance. Um, this isn't the most talented roster he's had over the last few years, but I do think they're quality pieces, and they're a team that's gonna be feisty. You mentioned they're gonna be pretty good at home. It's a good environment, so this is a team. They're kind of in that Maryland tier of like they're gonna be good. Maybe they're good enough to reach the tournament, but some things kind of probably have to go their way for that to happen.
Sneaky low key, very fun duo, Price Sanford and Connor Essegian. And by fun, I mean everyone's going to hate watching them, unless you're a Nebraska fan. How is the offense gonna run through those two?
I think they'll be the two featured perimeter scorers on this team. I would guess. I think the offense runs through Mast and kind of what he's able to create, but I'm not saying Esijan or Sanford are either Casey Tominaga, but they're both going to be somewhat in that role, especially Esijan is in his second year in this at Nebraska, where lots of handoffs, lots of off-ball movement, lots of pin downs, like just getting shots on the move. He's going to have some games where he probably just lights it up. He's going to have some games where he struggles a bit and he goes, 2 for 9 or something like that for three. And both that can be said probably for both of the shooters, but yeah, they're part of what makes Nebraska intriguing is that they have two guys that on any given night can be the best shooter in the Big Ten. Maybe they aren't the most consistent in that role, but on any given night can be the best shooter in the Big Ten.
Are they the new Iowa?
I think the defense is going to be better, um, which isn't saying much, but I see a little bit. I don't think they're going to be quite as fast paced. Like,
Okay.
I think with the amount of shooting though, and loud amount of skill that they have, that's kind of where the similarities make sense to me.
All right, are they a tournament team?
It pains me to say no. I do think there's a pathway for them to get there, but right, if this Big Ten is going to be an 11 to 12 bid team, like they're right on the outside. And 11 to 12 would be obviously the high end of the number of bids the Big Ten gets.
Yep. Concur. Let's move over to Northwestern. Chris Collins lost a lot last year during the season just from injury, and now it is unleash the Martinelli team. What are reasonable expectations for the team up in Evanston?
I think it's just to be feisty. I think this team lacks a little bit of the talent that's maybe the IUs and Iowas type have. Um, they're a team that, like, if they're 15th in the Big Ten, which my projections and most projections kind of have them in that spot, it's a really good team as the 15th best team in the Big Ten, a team that on any given night can win, a team that could end up close to 500 probably in Big Ten play if things fall where they may. Um, Defensively is the big thing. And Collins has been a very good defensive coach over the last, I don't know, 6 years, something like that. This roster does not have a ton of defensive talent on it. So that's going to be the question. But the offense is going to be fun. Obviously, Martinelli returning leading scorer in the Big Ten from last year. Really like Trey Singleton, KJ Wyndham, two Indiana guys who've made their way over to Northwestern. There's enough offensively, I think, to keep them afloat. Nick Martinelli's going to do his thing. I'm really concerned about what the defense could be.
Yeah, they are a team that probably needs to play rugged to win and play slow, and they're probably just not enough on that end to make it competitive. Not a tournament team.
Correct. They're like Minnesota. We're not a tournament team, but feisty on any given night.
Yeah. Martinelli will be fun to watch. He has one of the weirdest games in basketball. He will score a lot of points from places that he should not score points from. Let's move on over quick to Ohio State. Jake Diebler brought in a lot of talent, maybe has my favorite non-Purdue backcourt. I am a John Mobley stan. How good can Ohio State be this season?
I think the ceiling could be really good. The ceiling could be
Mhm.
a top 20, 25. I'm trying to see what, yeah, I have their ceiling somewhere around like the 15 to 20 range in the country. I think this is a team that also could see the floor really fall if the defense isn't good. But like you said, the backcourt the backcourt just gives them some level of a floor of just like Bruce Thornton, John Mobley is just going to like they're going to be productive, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Um, this is a team where like I'm pretty low on them. I've been low on them the last 2 years going into seasons. Last year I really did not like the roster at all. This year I at least I see the pathway to them being
Mhm.
good. I still have some concerns, but um, right, they're when you have Bruce Thorne, Mobley, I mean Devin Royal was good. Like they're going to be solid on a lot of nights.
Can they survive with their big men in the Big Ten?
Offensively, I think so. I think the concern with them, with Brandon Noel and Christoph Tilly, is that that means Devin Royals playing the three, and that can get a little funky with spacing and things. Although Noel is a good stretch four, defensively is where I'm concerned. I don't think
Mhm.
either of them are super Big Ten caliber defenders. Tilly can be they like Tilly and Thornton are both solid defenders. It concerns me that they're the two best defenders on this probably this roster. I think if they're the two you have to rely on to get defensive stops, you don't necessarily love that, especially when you take into account obviously Bruce Thornton is going to play a ton of minutes, have a ton of usage. Christoph Tilly is going to be very involved offensively, and that's where the concern comes. Where I just like I look up and down the roster and it's like Thornton and Tilly are solid at what they do. I don't know if I really trust anybody else on this roster defensively for now. And so this they're a team that could they're not going to play like Iowa because Ohio State
Mhm.
takes a lot of mid-range shots. Oh, I guess Iowa kind of did. But they're a team with that kind of discrepancy potentially to me of like incredible offense and defense. You just hope that it's okay.
What worries me is depth.
Yeah.
They are an injury away from being well under 500.
Yeah.
If like, and that is a tough place to be in the Big Ten. If they stay healthy, they have two guards that are good as anyone. Tournament team,
I hope I'm wrong because Bruce Thorne deserves to play in it.
right?
But I'm gonna go no. Like
Okay.
I think they're Nebraska, Maryland tier of just like I have too many questions about the
Mm,
defense. If the defense can be like, there's a pathway if the defense is even just
mm.
top 70 in Ken Palm, the offense is good enough that they get in. But also just I'm not like Jake Diebler can prove me wrong, but also I don't trust Jake Diebler unless he's coaching against Purdue right now.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I believe they've upset Purdue twice in the last two seasons.
Yep.
Um, Weird how certain teams just seem to do that. Let's move over to the West Coast. Oregon Ducks, Dana Altman. Somehow Nate Biddle's still on this team. Um, was old when he transferred there. Seems older now. Maybe has the captain of what are you doing taking that shot in Jackson Shellstad. It was a tough team to play last year, though. Very physical, very brutal, lot of length, could win any game. Is it a better or worse squad this season?
I think slightly better, or not
Okay.
even slight. I think it is going to be a bit better. They were 27th in Ken Palm. I think they end up closer to like 20. I'm really bought in on this defense. It is a little projections, and that is the scary thing with this Oregon team is you have Shellstad and Biddle, who's quietly one of the better guard big man duos in the conference. Um, and I don't think they get all the love that they probably deserve. But then outside of that, right, you have KJ Evans, who didn't quite take the jump last season. Maybe he's a year three breakout guy now that he's going to really have the runway to just play. And then it's a lot of unknowns. Now, I like a lot of their unknowns, and like Devin Pryor, and I like Sean Stewart as a backup big, and Ege Demir. They bring in Wei Ling kind of last minute from the CBA, and he's a high level scorer. So I think there are pieces to surround Shellstad and Biddle. I'm projecting those to work, but this
Mhm.
is one where it's very much more projecting and less concrete. Oh, like, oh, watch this film, and obviously they're going to be good.
Yeah. High variance to me. I do think Biddle is super solid. I It's a good 1-2 duo. I'm not sure Selstad gets the most out of having such a talented big man with the way he plays some of the shot selections. I think you put Biddle with a premier point guard that raises your ceiling a lot. Um, but they're big. Like they are not going to be fun to play on the wing.
No.
And that identity, if you can make it travel, I think Oregon struggled last year taking that on the road. Um, but if they can do that, they will be a team that is in the upper echelon-ish of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Where would you put them tier or just where you think they're going to finish Big Ten wise?
They're they're like 1B, tier two, like kind
Okay.
of
Yeah.
that area to me. I think this defense could be really, really, really
Yeah.
good if KJ Evans takes that leap. Between Evans, Biddle, Stewart, Demir, that's in really, really good defensive front court.
Yeah.
I'm big on Devin Pryor. He's a big wing. So I think the defense kind of carries them. The offense can be good enough, and they kind of find themselves in that number 4 to 7 spot in the Big Ten, something like that.
Yep. That feels right to me. All right. Penn State and Nittany Lions is who you have up next. Tough spot for Mike Rhodes again. Penn State is just a not a good place to be a basketball coach. They are what you have noted here. They are bringing in two newcomers. Six of them are freshmen. That speaks to me high variance. Maybe good going forward if you can build and get the right guys. But can we expect any real competition from Penn State this year?
I don't see it. I don't
Yeah.
see how this team can really be good. They, I put out the tweets a couple days ago. Braden Smith has played like 300 more collegiate minutes than this entire roster.
That's
That's
good.
just, yeah,
That's
that's
good.
just it's kind of just where this team's at. The best way I can describe this roster, it's like Mike Rhodes was guaranteed like he won't be fired after this year and like given like, hey, go for a development year. And they bring in, yeah, 6 freshmen who I think 4 to 5 of them will like play legitimate minutes. Even some of their returners didn't play heavy minutes. Katie Mingo will be fun as a point guard,
Mhm.
and Penn State might be the worst team in the Big Ten. Katie Mingo still will probably have a chance to win Big Ten Freshman of the Year.
Yeah.
So like he'll be fun. Outside of that, though, it's pretty bleak.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to say. Not enough talent, too young. Road system causes chaos, but you start trying to create chaos with a bunch of guys that don't really understand college basketball, it can get lopsided in a hurry.
Yep.
Bottom of the tier, Big Ten. Let's move past your next one and go on to Rutgers. We'll save Purdue for last.
All right.
Rutgers, two lottery picks last year, and probably the most disappointing team in the country. Just the amount of talent they had, and honestly, just the way Rutgers had played the whole under Pikel before, with defense being an identity, and it just kind of vanished, and the added offensive talent just never was never a cohesive unit. What can Rutgers expect this year? Are they a bottom rung Big Ten team?
Yeah, they're with Penn State to me of a very clear bottom two where it's just like, yeah, I don't really see the pathway for success at all. Now, Rutgers and Penn State will both be feisty enough defensively. They maybe squeak out a win or two. They do play each other twice, so there's at least 2 guaranteed Big Ten wins between those two. Much must see TV. I think they play, yeah, February 18th and March 8th. So
Oh,
end of the season there. I don't know who scores the ball for this Rutgers team.
right.
Like maybe Darren
Yeah.
Buchanan, maybe Herm Zerno, who comes from overseas. I know there's also the whole like, oh, this can be a Pikel team again defensively, and it's like it's possible. Pikel's a good defensive coach, but like you look at his good defenses, they had good defensive talent. This doesn't really have good defensive talent, so I just don't. There, it's another team. Lots of incoming freshmen, lots of players who have not played much meaningful college basketball. I just don't see the pathway for them.
Agreed. Rutgers, bottom of the 12. Just, it's going to be a chore to watch them,
Yep.
which is sad because even those defensive teams for a while just had some dudes that like watching them play defense was fun.
Yeah.
Gonna struggle. Moving over to a team that still doesn't feel like should be in the Big Ten. UCLA Bruins. Uh, will Cronin find joy this year?
No. And his team might be incredibly good, but no. It's just not going to happen.
Uh, just what is their identity going to be this year? They've moved on from a couple big pieces last year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more offensive balance than last year, where defense was more of their identity. Now, I think the defense will still be pretty good. It's Mick Cronin, like he just churns out pretty good defenses. Maybe it was inflated slightly last year just from some of their early non-con success against some teams that weren't that good. Um, but this is a team that was quietly still good last season. They
Right.
obviously had that huge, they lost 5 of 6 games, and 4 in a row to start Big Ten play, where they had 3 on the road, like, and everybody kind of knows about what Cronin's blow ups in that area. From that point on, they were what 11 and or 12 and like 5, it looks like roughly, give or take a little bit. I'm doing quick math. And they kind of rerun this last year's roster back with you bring back Tyler Bilodeau, Sky Clark, Eric Daly, even Trent Perry, I think can be a breakout guy. And you add in if Braden's the number one point guard in the country and Bennett starts the number two, Donovan Dent is number three, and
Well,
also could be one, he is on any given night can simply be like the best player probably in the
yep.
country. And so I just like the dynamic that they have offensively where they're going to have a ton of spacing around him. Dent will be able to get downhill a ton and go. Booker will be the big question mark of
I want to
can
ask
he?
about, yeah, because obviously it comes from Michigan State, where maybe not. I'm not sure there's ever been a worse fit for a player.
Yeah, it
Maybe
just
ever.
it just didn't work from day one. And he was a guy with right. He had to me coming out of high school, he was like, oh, he has the tools. He does kind of need to put it all together and just hasn't been able to do so. Maybe a fresh start will be able to kind of get him to be able to do that. The one, like, and the front court's going to be the big concern, right?
Right.
Xavier Booker and Steven Jameson are their two bigs. Jamerson's kind of an athletic rim protector, but he's not like gigantic. He's, I think, listed at 6'10", 210 pounds. But in my head, like at worst, because they ran Bilodeau a lot at the five last year. Like at worst, you do that again, and now you have Donovan Dents instead of Dylan Andrews at point guard, and that's just a better player. Um, but that's going to be the concern is like if Booker can hit of like, oh, he's a rim protector, can help space the floor a bit. I mean, he'll be the fifth option offensively on this roster, which maybe that helps him a bit too, where expectations are a little bit lower. Like that raises the ceiling of this team a lot and really can anchor their defensive identity. But it's a big if for somebody that has had the hype that he's had and hasn't performed in 2 seasons.
Yeah, to me, UCLA maybe has the most variance in the conference. That's a Final Four roster if everything works out. That's a first round upset if the pieces don't quite mesh.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Final Four. I think everything you said. I think the ball handlers, the talent there is a lot of good. Um, and I mean, the East Coast stuff has to start balancing a little, right? They can't lose every game on the right side of the country.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm looking now, they beat IU and Northwestern, and that
Yeah,
was their only wins like east of probably the Pacific time zone. Um, like at some point it's got to flip. And I do think as they progress a bit more, it should get better and better. There's also like, and I don't know if this is valid or not, like that 4 game stretch, or they lost 5 of 6. Um, but that was also like when the fires were going on and all that.
yeah,
So like there's a non-zero chance that that also contributed a bit, plus
right.
letting all the travel. There's pathways for like if you basically if you want to talk yourself into the optimistic view, it's just like, oh yeah, they'll be fine. And there was other external things, and it's not a big deal. We'll see if that's the case or not.
Where do they fit with tiers for you in the Big Ten? Are they at the very top?
Yeah, I would say so. They're like they're right on the border of 1A, 1B. Like to me, they're the third best team in the Big Ten. only behind Michigan and then Purdue. Um, but they're a team, like you said, I think the ceiling is very clearly a Final Four team. Also agree the floor is probably a little bit lower than definitely Purdue and probably Michigan as well, but still should just be a quality team at worst.
Yeah, because at times last year, UCLA was an elite defensive squad, has some really good guys, and the offense should be better this season.
Yep.
And I think Xavier Booker still flashes to me. I think there's some things, I don't trust his motor, but it could work.
Yeah.
Staying on the West Coast, USC Trojans, um, take off your shirt, Musselman, still in the building, are less of a circus this year on USC's team. Is it going to be a better team?
I think so. I think this is more of a Musselman roster. I think he learned a bit from last year too of like he went out and he got bigs and they're maybe not the biggest eye-popping names. They all do kind of unique things. Jacob Kofi's the one that has could be the breakout guy, transferred from Virginia. Really kind of skilled two-way player. Gabe Dines is a seven, listed at 7'5". He was also listed at 7'3" last year, so somewhere in that area. Like elite shot blocker, they have some stretch bigs, they have elite defensive forwards, and then they get Rodney Rice, Chad Baker, Mazzara. Obviously, the injury of Elijah Arenas hurts them a ton, but this feels like a Musselman roster of lots of wings, lots of size. Defense is going to be elite or very good, and the offense is going to be shaky and a little ugly, but there's going to be enough talents where it just can kind of work out. Also, it's just going to be fun. They're going to be must-see TV. Like they're going to be fun when it's like 11:30 Eastern time at nights, and you just flip on the USC game and you just see Chad Baker Mazar and Eric Musselman screaming at each other on the bench.
Yeah, it's another team. There's just a couple teams where it's 6'5" or above everywhere.
Yep.
And if you're watching this, you're probably a Purdue fan. There's been times where teams that just were big everywhere gave you some problems just because kind of the stuff you expect to open up or the stuff you do, it's just those windows aren't quite there if everyone is stretched out in 7-foot wingspans. And Musselman's been a good coach. His systems work. They get him frenetic. Like, there's no reason USC shouldn't be a good basketball program. Are they a tournament team?
I think so. I think
Okay.
they're in that IU Iowa tier where they end up on the right side of the bubble, kind of looking in. Wouldn't be shocked if this is like a little ugly start. They
Hmm.
figure it out by like January, end up a 10 seed, and then make the Sweet 16. Like that feels like Eric Musselman's MO in the past, and I wouldn't be
Right.
shocked if this team kind of fits that.
Yeah, I could see it kind of. They'll be more reminiscent of Pikel Rutgers teams than anything
Yeah,
Rutgers we've seen in the last couple of years.
yeah,
Staying on the West Coast, we're getting close to the end. Washington Huskies, um, probably the worst team last year. Um, Danny Sprinkle, first year, not super impressed by the thought behind putting that rotation, that roster together, to be honest. I didn't think their best player who they went and got, obviously from Utah State as well, really fit everything else in the roster. Um, what, Osador?
yeah.
Yeah,
Possible.
Osborne, yeah. Um, so is there a path to better results this season for Washington?
Yeah, this team feels much more put together. I'm very willing to write off last year for Sprinkle if like there much there are a lot of positive signs this year. I think he kind of got stuck of like Asabor demanded not demanded like well demanded a lot of money just with the market being set, and
Right.
he was Sprinkle kind of had to wait on him like are we doing this? And by the time Asabor committed, Sprinkle was like, well, we have no money and we have no real time left to put a roster
Hmm.
together, and that's the result that you get from it, especially when Asabor himself is in was an interesting fit already to in the Big Ten. But I'm willing to just kind of throw that away, start fresh. I think Sprinkle's a very good coach. I think this roster should be much better. Should be at worst, they're just going to be a lot more fun to watch. Right, you get the USC guard duo of Wesley Yates and Desmond Claude, which is interesting.
Yes.
But I'm a big Wesley Yates guy. I think he can be an all Big Ten type guy. Hans Steinbeck is probably like he's going to count as a freshman. He's an overseas guy. Probably will be the best freshman in the conference, or if not, one of the best two to three. And there's just kind of an ability between, especially those three, like they're going to be really productive. You have some solid role players. The big thing is going to be defense, like similar to Ohio State. You kind of look up and down this roster, and it's like, I guess Yates is the best defender, and it's like, I don't think he's a bad defender, but I also think that's a little concerning if he's your best perimeter defender. Frank Kepnog, he's going to be incredibly important. He is the one guy on this roster that can just like legitimately protect the rim, can cover up holes defensively. So I think this team should be much better than last season. And right, there's a scenario where Steinbach is just like not only the best freshman in the conference, but like one of the better players. And if that happens, that's where, the success for Washington can really spike.
Yeah, I am also a big fan of Yates. Just his ability to score at all three levels as needed, tough buckets, get to the line. Everything he does just screams like Washington just pulled off an upset again. Like
Yeah.
that, it seems a team they might. I don't know how great their record's going to be, but I think their resume is going to be good enough to where it's almost like, do they have, five tier one upsets? Are they on the bubble? Do they need rewarded for that? Uh, do you think they're a tournament caliber team?
I think there's somebody that's kind of gradually risen how I've thought about them this offseason. Like, to me, it hinges on if Claude is cool being like, oh, I'm like going to be the best third option or one of the best third options in the conference.
Hmm.
I think this team will be good then. The defense is still going to limit the ceiling some, but they'll be good. If he's like, no, I'm the guy, like, give me the ball, then I think they honestly maybe miss the tournaments. But I'm going to bank on it kind of working together. I think if we were to like go through, I think they would probably be the last Big Ten, like the worst Big Ten team to make the tournaments.
Okay.
Like right on the like, yeah, they're. I expect them to be sweating on Selection Sunday.
But to honestly just be in the conversation would be a big turnaround from what we
Oh,
saw of Washington and Sprinkle's first year. That would definitely be a success and a lot of momentum going forward.
yeah.
Staying with the W's, over to Madison, Wisconsin, where we've got the Wisconsin Badgers. Probably the most confusing team to me. I don't know what to make of them. Where are they going to be good?
I think so. I'm pretty high on this roster. Um, I'm John Blackwell can be a superstar, I think. I really like the Nick Boyd pickup. And honestly, the more I've watched Rhodey coming over from Virginia, I like the fit. Front court depth is going to be a gigantic question mark, like a very, very big question mark. But I think their top four is really good. I like Wisconsin's offensive system now. Crazy
Mhm.
to say, but what they've kind of developed over the last 2 years, like to me, this team, they're stylistically is going to be different, obviously, but like in terms of pure metrics, last year Purdue was seventh in offense and 53rd in defense. I
Yeah.
don't know if Wisconsin will be quite that, but I think a top 10 offense and 55 defense is very much in the cards. And if that's the case, they're a top 20 program probably this season.
Yeah, right now Kim Palm has them projected as 17th on offense, 31 on defense, though they might be even more optimistic than you.
Yeah.
Um, it's always interesting when teams kind of just lose Big Ten stalwarts, and Wisconsin had, Crawl and always seemed to have one.
Mhm.
Now, I guess or Blackwell is someone you would consider, but it's just going to be a very new experience. Um, I worry, I definitely worry about the defense the same way you do, and if they're going to rebound the ball at all.
Yeah.
And to me, that limits them out of both the top two tiers. Uh, I think I with Black, it's Blackwell was really good as like the fourth guy, the third guy. When he gets matched up with someone like Lawyer, I worry how that offense looks when he's being game planned against, and
Yeah.
that's kind of their offensive ceiling. So interesting team. Greg Gard's a good coach. They'll be good.
Yep.
Do you think they'll be in the hunt for the Big Ten?
I think they'll be one of the first teams on like the outside looking in. I think they're like bottom of the um like second tier, like tier 1B, second tier type, where to me, I think there's a decent gap between them and the next best team in the Big Ten. Uh, but they're not quite good enough to like really they're gonna be good enough to where you're like, oh, they're like kind of close, but they're not gonna be good
Mhm.
enough to really compete for the top of the Big Ten.
That feels right. Kind of a transition year for him again. Uh, so I think that's fine. We got one team left. It's the team that we will be going to see tomorrow night in Mackey
Yes.
Arena. Start off their season. The number one ranked, but maybe barely a top 20 team after losing to Kentucky in exhibition. Purdue Boilermakers, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman, Rin. We know the names. The favorite to win the Big Ten. Do you feel worse after two exhibition games?
Um, Maybe like slightly more of just like I guess before the Kentucky game, there was optimism like, oh, the defense is just gonna like be better right away. And it's more of like, oh no, it's gonna take some time to like get there. I do think they ultimately end up being good enough defensively, and
Mhm.
with how elite this offense is going to be, like they don't have to be great. They just need to be good enough. And I do think they get there. Do think it's going to take a little bit of time. And
Mhm.
right, we're nitpicking. To me, they're a top for sure a top three team at worst in the country right now. And so when you're that good, right, it's more nitpicky, but it that those are kind of the concerns, right? Is what is the defense going to fully be? Does Clough fully is he going to be able to be more comfortable in the offensive system and things like that? Um, when you have Braden, TKR, and Fletch, though, like similar, they're similar to UCLA and like right, UCLA is kind of rerunning last year's roster of like, hey, this is a very good team, maybe not elite team. There was flaws. We're gonna rerun it back and also add a couple better pieces. Like Purdue's in the same spot where it's like, hey, let's rerun back our entire core. And now let's bring back Daniel Jacobson from injury. Let's add Oscar Clough. Um, and then Meyer, I think long term, by the end of the season, will be a bigger contributor. So then it's like, all right, well, they were the what 15th in Ken last season. I don't think anybody would say that they were like elite, and they were one shot away from going to the Elite Eight against the Tennessee team that looked dead against Houston.
Right.
If like the floor is them, probably the floor to me is their team last year, and I just don't see that really happening. So like this team's gonna be good.
Yeah, I'd argue the floor is even higher than that just because the defense was so unreliable. And
Yeah.
even bad Clough, even this uncertain Clough that we're getting right now, which I don't believe will sit, like he's going to get better as he gets comfortable. Jacobson coming back. To me, do you believe, like, obviously there was some fun internet back and forth between some people about Jakari Harris. I thought there was a premature call that he was like threatening the starting role. I didn't think he looked super great in the summer practices I saw, except for a shot. Like it definitely looks more comfortable. But watching the intra squad scrimmage, watching him at Kentucky, watching him in the other exhibition game, it's clear that all the things that he flashed in high school that you loved, like you were on bandwagon. I didn't see it last year. I didn't think he played basketball particularly well. I thought CJ Cox was head and shoulders above him. Maybe a little bit because what CJ does is a little easier to transfer over, just
Mhm.
because Jakari, part of his thing is he's so versatile.
Yeah.
But now, like, do you believe like what Jakari has shown is Jakari's kind of been what everyone believed Omer Meyer was in some ways, minus the
Yeah,
elite playmaking.
yeah, not the quite the on ball, but I mean, like you said, I'm still a big Jakari believer. Even last season, obviously, I thought it was the right decision to start CJ,
Right.
but you saw to see Jakari by the end of the season of like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, there's a good basketball player in there. I don't know if he starts or not. Like, I don't care as much about that. I could see him being, especially early in the season, in the closing lineups though. Right, and it's a luxury that Purdue has that.
That's the thing,
Right.
right?
There, it's going
He's
to
the
be,
luxury for Clough and Meyer to come along slowly.
yeah, exactly. Because Jakari, like, he's going to be good. I also like, I think for what that role specifically will be, I think maybe fits slightly better than CJ,
Mhm.
just because CJ at times does need to really have the ball to like go make a play,
Right.
which he's awesome at. And right, we over on Boilers in the Stands, I feel like Craig talks about it once every like 2 to 3 shows of like,
Mhm.
hey, you should just like get CJ more looks, but it's hard to do when right that's potentially the fifth option offensively this
Right.
year, which is insane to say. Um, they're both going to be good, but yeah, I really like what Shikari has done defensively. I think he can be the best perimeter defender on the team. The shot obviously has to hold. I'm a believer that it's going to be good, if not maybe not elite, but good. And he's somebody that can get downhill and be a bit more physical and get to the rim. So I'm excited to see what a potential kind of year two. I don't know if breakout's the right word because the counting numbers just naturally on this
Right.
team may not be elites given his role, but breakout in what his role could be, I guess.
Yeah, when I'm looking at shooting, the number one thing I want is balance, and his balance is so much better than it was last year.
Yeah,
He's under control. He seemed to have gone to the Fletcher Lawyer, my lower body is always set school of as soon as I catch it, I'm ready to shoot.
yeah,
That's wild compared to what he was last year. It got good at the end of the season, like he made shots, but those were wide open shots. This year, he doesn't need much space. He's in a shooting pocket. He's ready to go. And to me, that's just perfectly slotted, like you said, into the starting lineup, into what they do. And then he's a transition bucket. And that's
yeah,
something they really didn't have last year. And that's free points. And when I think of Purdue and I think of this offense and how probably historically good they're going to be, there's just so many easy buttons for points. And Jakari adds that where CJ doesn't, in the sense of he's going to get breakaway layups.
yeah,
He's going to have the open threes. And then you throw in Daniel Jacobson's dunks that are free, offensive putbacks, Trey's baskets, Braden's. Like, there's just so many points everywhere all the time. I, defensively, is the concern more about the bigs or the guards? Because I feel like on paper now, the guards should be better than they've shown, but they're still not natural at just stopping penetration.
yeah. If you were to ask me this a month ago, it would be the guards for sure.
Hmm.
I'm so I think Clough himself is very good in a high hedge. I get it.
Hmm.
Like I get why that staff likes it. I do not think the rest of this roster is good to be able to like if Clough is not elite at what he needs to do in that, they're kind of just cooked. And there's a few examples, especially in the Kentucky game, where it's just like, yeah, like Purdue literally can't do anything.
Correct.
So there's that concern. And I do think they're going to tinker with it, and I don't expect him to be 100% high hedge. I also think it could be like a we are going to run this all early because we want to see what it looks like, knowing that, hey, we can get back to our more conservative drop coverage style and that can be fine. And Jacobson's really good at that. So I think if Jacobson emerges more as the defensive guy, then there's less concern there. Um, the fun thing with, and the quiet thing maybe with the Jakari potential leap, we'll say, is it becomes a lot more feasible to run Braden, CJ, and Jakari together if you need to. And if that happens, now you're getting your two best perimeter defenders out there on the floor. And so it's going to be good that they at least have potentially that option more. Obviously, you're still going to play lawyer a bunch and all that as you should. And Braden's not a bad defender by any means. He's much better off ball than on ball, but he can still be very disruptive off ball. Like So there's pathways for this defense again to just be solid, right? If Clough, as he starts settling in, Jacobson, we believe is going to be an elite rim protector. See what TKR kind of does in his role. More of just really, he just has to be a non-negative. He doesn't have to be a
Right.
positive defender, just can't be negative. Um, so there's pathways for this defense being solid. I do think they're going to struggle a bit early. I think early on the defense might be a tad underwhelming, but then by the time January, February rolls around, we're like, oh, yeah, this is a top 30-ish defense and right, this offense should be the best offense in the country, probably by a wide margin. That's all you need defensively to be a national champion.
Yep. 100%. I don't think there's any way this offense fails.
No.
Even though are there any concerns about what Trey Kaufman has shown sliding back to the four?
I'm gonna go with no, just because like he still they figured it out even with Caleb first, and
Right.
like Clough and Jacobson are better offensively than first. I love first, but um, I think it's honestly like some of the clunkiness comes from Clough just not being in the system yet. I think that's one thing I've kind of called out of like, yes, first teams, if you were to ask teams who they worry about more offensively between first and Clough, they're going to say Clough. But first at least knew exactly where he needed to be at all times because he'd been in the system for so long. As Clough starts getting to that level, I think some of those concerns go away. The main concern is just like we just assume the floater's going to be really
Right.
good and like it should be, but it is a little concerning of like it's a lot of easy ones that he's missed in only 2 games and just getting back in the swing. So, right, by game 3, it could be a non-concern, but it is, I know it's something we'll probably all be kind of like, all right, we trust you, but like the ball does need to kind of go in a little bit for
Right.
us.
Yeah, there's been some decision making that you hope kind of irons out once they get
Yeah.
used to it again.
Yep.
I I think the biggest question mark is the four spot backup.
Mhm.
And maybe not even just whether it's good enough. It's just how much the rotation changes and what they do on the court when it is Jack Benner
Yeah.
compared to a big. And I've honestly loved everything I've seen from Benner. I like the way the offense works. I think Benner and Jakari Harris together make so much sense on the court.
Mhm.
And is small ball Purdue going to be good enough on offense to make up for what it might lose on rebounding?
Like it should be because if like Benner's 4, TKR's 5, like, and you put in whoever you wanted, the 2 other guards
Right.
besides Braden, like you literally defense is just hoping that Purdue
Yeah.
has misses open jumpers then,
Yeah.
and that's going to happen sometimes. Um, Obviously, that's really concerning defensively because Benner's small, TKR is small. Why it's called small ball. Um,
I feel like Jacobson fits into that lineup better.
yeah, I agree, and I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacobson eventually just is the starter. It might be right away. Um, I think he just kind of. I think he fits a little bit more with TKR, whereas with Clough, if you played him defensively, where with like
Right.
Benner, you're a little bit more perimeter focused, probably try to force a few more turnovers. So I could see those fits kind of working better. But yeah, like Benner's going to have to play probably 10 minutes a night. It feels, give or
Right.
take a few, obviously, on any given nights. But I think I'm comfortable enough with him this year in that spot where he's not going to make too many mistakes. Defensively, he just has to hold up, and then he's going to obviously knock down shots at some point.
Yeah. I am I think we're both very optimistic, obviously, about this season.
Yeah.
Um, National title contenders, Purdue, right?
Oh,
Heavy favorites to win the Big Ten.
yeah. I think I'm pretty high on Michigan, so I think
Okay.
they're not like too distant of a second, but it is Purdue's to lose. Purdue is to me comfortable. I would probably put them as the third best team right now in the country behind Houston and
Oh,
Florida.
okay.
But like wouldn't by like February would not be shocked if they are the best team.
Yeah. It should be a team that gets better throughout the season. There are
I agree.
enough small pieces that will improve. We didn't even talk about Meyer.
Yeah,
So like take that for what it's worth. I think he's going to be fine.
I
I
do too.
think he's shooting the ball aggressively, and I think that's what Purdue wants,
Yep.
and that will pay off.
Him and Clough both just once they stop
Yeah,
thinking and are just playing, they'll be fine.
yeah, yeah. And the energy with Meyer has been great.
Mhm.
I mean Clough too, but like Meyer's the one you think of because like you see him on the international scene as like the star of a national team, and like he's doing all the role player stuff well, and I like
Yeah.
to see that from a guy. All right, Joe, we just ran through the gauntlet. That's the entire Big Ten. We appreciate it. Once again, go ahead and hawk where we can get the Big Ten basketball preview that you spent all summer building, compiling, and putting together.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. Appreciate the shout out. You can find a link to it on my Twitter at Joe Jackson CBB. I think you also said the link will be in the description.
Oh, yeah.
So do appreciate all the support that everybody has shown on that, and excited that college basketball is finally back.
We are here. I am about to go to the first regular season media practice availability in 30 minutes. We've got a Purdue game tomorrow night at Mackey Arena. We are back. As always, you can catch Joe Jackson and Boilers in the Stand guys after the game. I believe you guys are doing a preview this afternoon that'll be out.
Yeah.
Um, Always go check out their stuff. No one knows ball better than Joe. Craig's okay. Craig's fine. No, we love Craig. We love Braggs. We love all you guys. Appreciate you hopping on. It's going to be a fun Big Ten season. Anything else,
Yep.
Joe?
This is the year. Big Ten wins it. I would bet Purdue if it is, but I think there's a couple teams that can go and win a national championship, and that's probably just me being optimistic and a Big Ten homer, but I'm gonna stick with it.
Final Four, Indianapolis, Indiana. Me and Joe will hopefully be there covering Purdue while they're in it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will be back throughout the season here on the Boiler Upload YouTube channel.